I've made videos like this before, and I'm going to make it again, but I feel as though this time it's a little bit more important to do so because we are coming up towards the very end of the year here, and we are going to be going into 2020. So, what I wanted to do is take some time to reflect a little bit and talk about my year so far with PlayStation. And I feel as though this is kind of a big deal for me personally because anybody who's been following my channel for a little while now, I'd say maybe for the past 6 months or so, but especially those of you who've been here for longer than that, you'll see that there was a major transition that took place, and I have talked about it many times in the past, but I really want to discuss it again in depth in this video, mainly because there's just not a whole lot to talk about right now, and I feel like, everybody's doing their Game of the Year videos and their Games of the Decade videos, and I'm probably going to do a few of those as well, since things are going to inevitably slow down over the next week or two before they build back up again, and so I figured it'd be a good time to do this. But talking about PlayStation and the significance of me kind of transitioning what I'm known for, the content I've created, over from mainly just covering Xbox, being a definitely, I'd say, delusional fanboy towards Xbox, and then just kind of breaking out of that and saying, you know what, it's time to expand my horizons. I'm going to go over to PlayStation and I'm going to live there for a while, experience some of the games it has to offer, and see what it's like. And it's crazy because I know that ever since I've done this, a lot of people have said that, you're just way too hard on Xbox and now you just hate on Xbox. And if you look back and you actually kind of look at the timeline of the way things have happened, it's very clear to me that there was something that just kind of broke me. And it was me deciding to play The Last of Us. Just randomly, I just decided to play it and experience it because I've heard about it for so long, and I was always kind of interested in it, but I was like, eventually I'll get to it. But I just decided, I'm going to play The Last of Us and do a review on it and just, give my thoughts on it. And I wasn't expecting it to be that great, right? And oh boy, did I... was I wrong on that one. And so I made this video where I talked about my experience with the game, and I was just blown away by it. I had to express just how shocked I was at how good this game was, and it was coming from somebody who went into it expecting it not to really blow me away, because I'd heard everything that everybody had to say about it, and the expectation was so high that it was one of these situations where I was like, there's no way it's going to live up to that. Not only was it that, but it was also the combination that I happened to play The Last of Us for the first time during a time when Xbox was getting ready to release Crackdown 3, and they were kind of building up to that, and we saw the disaster that ended up being, and all the, everything just kind of coalesced into one thing where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I was a little bit nervous and hesitant to move over to PlayStation. First of all, I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. Like, the thing is, I grew up playing PlayStation, and that is probably the biggest thing that pushed me into actually going back to it, because I was just like, it's been so long since I really played on PlayStation, and when I was younger and I was playing on it, I wasn't as into gaming as I am now, and I spent so much time with the Xbox 360, and I was so heavily invested into the Xbox One to the point where I had a YouTube channel that I dedicated to this platform, and I had built up a little bit of an audience, and I was just so afraid that if I do this, like, even though it's something I want to do, like, personally, I'm afraid it's not going to work out. And I was, obviously I was aware that PlayStation was considered more popular, and, a lot of the games that they released were getting a lot of praise, and a lot of people were talking about them, but I was really never interested in any of that, because I was never the type of person to just follow something for the sake of following it, just because it's popular, I want to follow it. I never really did that. And a lot of people assume that that's why I, made the transition I did on my channel here at the beginning of this year to PlayStation. It was simply just because of that. But what people don't seem to realize, and I know a lot of you do realize this, but what some people don't realize is that I was terrified to do it, because I thought, like, even though I didn't get a ton of views and I didn't have the biggest audience when talking about Xbox, there was definitely somewhat of a following I'd built up, and I felt kind of bad, like, I felt like I was kind of betraying that audience a little bit. But, talking about myself here, I felt a little bit betrayed by Microsoft and Xbox and what they had done, and I felt like I was waiting for so long, and I just kept feeling let down and disappointed over and over again. And I'm not trying to make it sound dramatic. I know, we're just talking about video games here, but I think it's something that a lot of you guys are interested in hearing, and I know that some of you are kind of new here and maybe don't know the whole story. But the combination of playing The Last of Us while also, seeing what Crackdown 3 turned out to be, it just broke me. And I went on this, I just flipped the switch, man. Like, I just was like, you know what? I'm going to stick with PlayStation for right now. I'm going to start experiencing some of the games that I missed out on this generation. And if The Last of Us is anything to go by, I'm in for an amazing experience, and I wasn't wrong about that. I was also looking forward to Days Gone. Like, that's another thing to point out. Like, Days Gone always piqued my interest, so I was like, okay, maybe this is a good time to be doing this, because Days Gone is a game that, on a surface level, definitely piques my interest. And from that point forward, I was kind of just really hard on Xbox, because I was just like, I had enough. Like, so many people have been telling me for so long, like, dude, you're missing out on so much by just limiting yourself to Xbox. And people still tell me that now, saying, you need to start playing Nintendo and stuff. And believe it or not, I have, been playing a little bit of the Switch. I haven't been getting too deep into it. I feel like there are definitely some experiences that Nintendo offers that I'm interested in, and others I'm definitely not interested in. But, me kind of going back to PlayStation and then simultaneously seeing the support I got for doing that, seeing people come out here and be like, dude, it's so awesome to witness somebody experience The Last of Us for the first time, to experience Bloodborne for the first time, which Bloodborne, between The Last of Us and Bloodborne, I couldn't believe I allowed myself to miss out on these experiences, or potentially miss out on them. Luckily I didn't. Right, but wait so long to experience them, and then it just continued. I played Uncharted 4, and I feel like Uncharted 4 is a game I want to go back and play again, potentially, because I feel like I just didn't give that game a fair shake at the time, because I don't know, like, the gameplay, I was having a struggle with it. It felt too loose to me, but I guess I just didn't realize, like, what Uncharted was, but that's neither here nor there. I played God of War, and, God of War was something to me when I played it that it was before The Last of Us, and I was just like, wow, this is incredible. Like, God of War was an incredible game. It's one of the best games I've ever played, but even after playing it, I still thought, well, okay, maybe I'll be more open. This definitely opened my eyes to the things that PlayStation is doing, and it was kind of like, I guess you could say, the first seed that was planted in my head after playing God of War, where I was like too afraid to kind of break out of my delusional fanboy ways, and I think I was just like in shock at what I experienced with God of War, and I was like, okay, there's no, like, that's enough for me. There's no way that every other game or other games that Sony's producing is on this level, because if so, I'm going to beat myself up for willingly allowing myself to miss out on this, while simultaneously rooting for a company that is not doing anything even remotely like this. And so I continued on a little bit further, and then we all saw what happened there. But, playing games like Bloodborne, Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn, and others, even games like Shadow of the Colossus, which I would have never imagined myself playing, but I decided to just give it a chance. It was really, it's been a special year for me, is all I'm trying to say. So, I talk about my year with PlayStation, 2019 with PlayStation. I haven't even mentioned, I mentioned Days Gone briefly, but I haven't talked really about that game and Death Stranding. I have about like 95 hours in that game right now, and I'm still finding myself enjoying almost every minute of playing it, and I'm pleasantly making my way through the game, working my way towards a platinum. And I say pleasantly because I had high hopes for Death Stranding, and I really rooted for this game throughout this year. And even at a time when people were divided and it was clearly a divisive game, and a lot of people were trying to tell me, bro, stop lying to yourself, it's just trash and this and that, and trying to tell me how I should or shouldn't feel about the game. And, it feels like it's been an incredible year. Death Stranding is a game that I think really kind of changed my perspective, or my perception, I guess you could say, of what a fun game can actually be. Like what a gameplay loop, an addicting gameplay loop can actually be. Because if somebody, like once I first saw the gameplay of Death Stranding, I definitely was a little bit nervous, but I was still keeping the faith there. But once I actually experienced it for myself, I was still a little bit nervous because there's a steep learning curve. But now that I'm like almost 100 hours into the game and I feel like I'm a pro at the game, right? Like I understand it fully, and I understand, holy crap, like Kojima somehow found a way to make delivering packages in this world like a really fun and addicting gameplay loop. So that and Days Gone. Days Gone was an amazing experience. I always kind of thought it was going to be a good game. And it was, we all saw what happened there with the review scores and whatnot. And I defended that game. I defended Days Gone because I knew, like, in this case, the reviewers have to be wrong. Not only because did we find out that the game was technically like broken for a lot of reviewers because Sony wasn't able to get the patch out in time, which that's understandable. I could totally understand how if you're playing a broken version of a game that was supposed to receive a day one patch, how that could ruin your experience. But they ironed most of that out, the major stuff out, at least for me. I didn't have barely any technical hiccups with that game. But then also some of the reasons that people were pointing to, like GameSpot and IGN in their reviews, the individuals they had reviewing the game, it just seemed like some of the reasons were more like politically aligned and not necessarily, like they just weren't really focused too much on the actual game itself, and they were just pointing out these problems that, like, is that really a problem though? Like, does that actually take away from the game, or does it just bother you for your own, because of the whatever agenda you may have, right? Like, there's a big difference there, and it was nice to see that a lot of people rallied behind that game and supported it, and that just made me feel really good. Not only did it make me feel validated, like, okay, I'm not completely off the mark here, but it was a great game, and that's what it all comes down to. And so I'm just, not only do I feel fully invested in PlayStation, obviously because I have you guys here, I have an audience now that's interested in it, that supports a lot of the content I put out. That's not my only motivation. It is a big part of it, for sure. I enjoy making content. I enjoy the fact that there's an audience here that likes to show up and listen to what I have to say, and, they look to me for, like, certain news and information and opinions. It makes me feel really good, but the thing that it comes down to is, I grew up with PlayStation. I kind of fell off it, and now I came back as, an adult now, and I realized that there is just something here that it fits perfectly for me. Like it's a perfect match for me. And while I am feeling definitely more confident about Xbox going into next generation, I said something in one of my videos, yes, I think it was yesterday's video, where I said, like, at this point, I could never go back to my old ways. And I only say this because I've seen some people kind of pointing out, like, oh, look, now because Xbox is doing a couple of good moves, you've seen some of these so-called flip-floppers, which is, that's what some people labeled me for some reason, even though I'm just somebody who wants to experience good video games. They're kind of going back to their old ways, or back to that old, delusional fanboy mentality. And I'm just like, I'm outside of that now. Like, I really am. I truly had no clue. Like, I had no clue what exactly I was missing out on. Just how much. I don't want to say what I was missing out on, but how much of it I was missing out on. And now we are where we are now going into 2020. And we see very clearly the distinct paths that each gaming company is walking, where we have Nintendo doing their own thing, marching to the beat of their own drum, and it's been working incredibly well for them, and it always just seems like a really interesting, unique option, something that's tried and true, I guess you could say. And then we have Xbox, and they are very much still involved in the console space, and they are showing some promise with what they're going to attempt to deliver next generation, with some hopefully bigger games, better games, more games, games that can hopefully compete with some of the games that we've gotten from Sony this generation. But they're very much invested in trying to still appeal to a more casual audience. We see what they're doing with xCloud. We see how important services are to them, things like Game Pass. And while I respect that a lot of people appreciate Game Pass for the value it offers, it's not something that I'm particularly super interested in. I'm still very much a traditionalist in that way, and that is where I look at Sony, and when I say it fits perfectly, I'm not kidding when I say that. It's a great match, like I said, and I just reflect on this year, and I think how differently things would be if I didn't decide to just randomly pick up and play The Last of Us. Because I have to say, the thing that blew my mind about that game, like, for as amazing as God of War was, like, and that game blew my mind, I was like, okay, this is a 2018 game, and wow, it is easily, like, probably that it was the best game I played, in 2018, hands down. But when I played The Last of Us, and I realized, like, this was a PS3 game, like, this was a last generation game. That's when I was just like, okay, like, I need to play the second one. Like, now you got me. You got me on the hook. So, yeah, I just think that this year has been an incredible year. The growth I've seen on the channel has been amazing, and I'm very thankful for it. And I know that not everybody agrees with everything I have to say, and I'm glad that that's not the case, because that would be kind of weird. It's always interesting to see differing opinions and perspectives, but if there's one thing I feel like I can say for sure and confidently, is that what I realized is that the PlayStation community was never really truly, like, against me or anything like that. When I was kind of a delusional Xbox fanboy back in the day, it was really just like they wanted me to come over and experience these games for myself, and realize that people who get, as we could say, fanatical about it, right? And it can be a little bit ridiculous at times. Even I'm guilty of that. Anybody who has a passion for anything, I think, is guilty of that. What it comes down to is just the love of amazing gaming experiences. And I made many videos this year kind of talking about how I'm just so thankful that I had this community kind of push me in that direction and just encourage me and support me and say, look, man, like, the reason why we love PlayStation is because we love the games they put out. And the reason why so many people had loved Xbox as deeply as they did was because of the games that they'd put out, And the reason why people love Nintendo as deeply as they do is because of the games that they put out. And so I'm just trying to say thank you to you guys. Thank you to everybody who has supported me here. And the future is looking brighter than ever, not only for my channel, but obviously for gaming all around. I can say that for Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, but particularly with Sony, what they're going to be doing with the PS5, and more importantly, what they're going to be doing with the games that we're going to get for PS5. I'm incredibly excited. Like, you guys have no idea how excited I am for 2020. It's going to be an absolutely insane year. And I just really wanted to get this, and this is a long video at this point. I appreciate anybody who stayed for this long listening. But I really wanted to just have one last video expressing just my thoughts, on everything I've experienced PlayStation-wise this year. And I plan to do even more going into next year. And it has just been a really fun ride. It's been really interesting, and yeah, I can't think of a better way to kind of end the year making a video like this, thanking my audience, thanking my supporters, talking about the excitement we have for PlayStation going into 2020, while also, playing Death Stranding and working on a platinum for that game. So that's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I know it wasn't the most informative or the most exciting, but to me it just felt like a video I wanted to make, and it was important to me. And again, over the next week or two, as we all prepare for the holiday and, spending time with our families and whatnot and enjoying that, we're probably not going to have too much to talk about, but things are certainly going to ramp up big time come January and February. So yeah, at this point, I want you guys to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. How was your year with PlayStation? Let me know. You can let me know how your year was with Xbox, with Nintendo, or with anything else. Just let me know how your year was. Leave the video a like if you did enjoy it, if you appreciate my commentary here. Definitely leave a like if you are happy to see that have had a fulfilling year of experiencing PlayStation games that I missed out on. And be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.